Most people spend their entire lives watching the wrong things. They listen to what people say. They focus on the grand gestures. They judge others by how they act when everything is easy, when the stakes are low, when there's nothing to lose. And that is exactly why they keep getting betrayed. Here is the disturbing truth that almost nobody talks about. People do not reveal who they are through their words. They do not reveal themselves in moments of comfort. They reveal themselves completely, unmistakably, and permanently through 6 small, almost invisible actions that most people overlook entirely. A slight hesitation before answering. The way someone reacts when you win. What they do when you are no longer useful to them. These tiny moments carry more psychological truth than years of conversation ever could. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that the most common lie is the lie one tells to oneself. And here is what he understood better than almost anyone in history. Most people are not even aware that they are showing you exactly who they are. They believe their masks are perfect. They believe their intentions are hidden. They are wrong. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of a person they cannot consciously control, the part that leaks out in small, unguarded moments. And once you learn to read those moments, you will never be deceived in the same way again. In this video, we will uncover the 6 small actions through which people unconsciously reveal their true intentions. And more importantly, we will give you the psychological tools to see clearly, protect yourself, and move through the world with a level of emotional intelligence that most people spend their whole lives never developing. Pay close attention to this one, because nothing, absolutely nothing, exposes a person's true feelings toward you faster than your own success. Most people believe that the friends, family members, or colleagues who clap and smile when something good happens to you are genuinely happy for you. And some of them are. But here is what most people miss. The first reaction, the one that happens in the half-second before someone can arrange their face into the socially acceptable expression. That is the truth. It is a micro-expression, a flicker, a pause that lasts just a moment too long before the congratulations come. Psychologists call this reaction Freudenfreude in its absence, the inability to feel joy at another person's joy. And its darker counterpart, Schadenfreude, pleasure at another's misfortune, is far more common in our social circles than any of us are comfortable admitting. Here is why this matters. In a work environment, imagine you receive a promotion you have worked years to earn. Watch the person who says, "You deserved it," but never asks you about it again. Watch the friend who congratulates you publicly on social media, but grows distant in private. Watch the family member who quickly redirects the conversation back to themselves. These are not accidents. These are psychological signals. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we should not look for recognition from those who cannot even recognize themselves. He was pointing at something profound, that people who are internally hollow will always experience your fullness as a kind of threat. Not because they hate you, but because your progress illuminates everything they have refused to confront about their own lives. Carl Jung would frame it this way. When your success triggers someone's shadow, their unresolved insecurities and buried ambitions activate. And rather than doing the hard psychological work of confronting those wounds, it is far easier for the ego to minimize your achievement, to find reasons why it was luck, or to quietly pull away from the relationship entirely. The memorable insight here is this: the people who celebrate your success loudest in public, but grow coldest in private, are not your allies. They are mirrors reflecting their own limitations back at themselves, and using you as the glass. There is an ancient principle hidden inside the way people gossip, and it tells you almost everything you need to know about how they will one day speak about you. Most people treat gossip as harmless social currency. A little information shared here, a little drama discussed there. What they do not realize is that every time someone tears down an absent person in front of you, they are handing you a psychological blueprint of their character. Think about this carefully. If someone sits across from you and speaks with contempt about a mutual friend, describing their failures, their embarrassing moments, their private struggles, what are they actually showing you? They are showing you that in their world, loyalty has a price. That the moment you become absent, or inconvenient, or no longer useful, the same mouth will speak about you the same way. Nietzsche was brutal about this. He wrote that people who cannot endure their own silence will fill it with the noise of others' lives. Gossip, in his framework, is not connection. It is a symptom of psychological weakness, of a person who cannot build their identity from within, and so must define themselves by standing on top of what they've torn down. There is a real-life pattern here that you have almost certainly experienced. The colleague who tells you intimate details about another coworker's personal life on your first week. The friend group where everyone talks about one member as soon as they leave the room. The family member who tells you stories about relatives in a tone dripping with judgment and satisfaction. Each of these is a small action, but each one is a revelation. Arthur Schopenhauer argued that character is destiny, that who a person fundamentally is will express itself inevitably across every relationship, every situation, every decade of their life. The person who gossips about others to you will gossip about you to others. Not sometimes, every time. It is not a matter of circumstance. It is a matter of character, the insight to carry with you. A person's treatment of those who are absent is not just a window into their values. It is a preview of their intentions toward you. This one is perhaps the most quietly devastating sign of all. We live in a world built on transactional relationships, and most people have never stopped to examine just how transactional the people in their lives truly are. Here is the test, and it is almost brutally simple. What does someone do when they need absolutely nothing from you? Do they still call? Do they still show up? Do they still invest energy into the relationship when there is no immediate benefit on the horizon for them? Watch carefully, because the person who only appears when they need something, advice, a favor, emotional support, a connection, a resource, and then disappears back into silence the moment the need is fulfilled, is not your friend. They are a manager of resources, and in their internal accounting system, you are one of those resources. This is not cynicism. This is psychology. Evolutionary psychologists have documented what they call reciprocal altruism, the deeply embedded human tendency to cooperate and invest in relationships where the exchange is mutual. When the exchange becomes consistently one-directional, the relationship has already ended. Most people simply have not gotten the notification yet because the other party keeps returning at the precise moment they need something again, reactivating just enough warmth to maintain access. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you should never esteem anything as profitable to you that will compel you to break your promise, lose your self-respect, hate, suspect, curse, or act with hypocrisy. He was describing, in Stoic terms, the corrosive psychological cost of maintaining relationships with people who drain without replenishing. Here is the real-life version. The friend who calls only when they are in crisis. The family member who reaches out only around major holidays or when they need help navigating a difficult situation. The professional contact who connects with you when they are job hunting and vanishes when they are settled. Each of these individually can be forgiven. Life gets busy. People become absorbed. These things happen, but a consistent pattern is not a coincidence. It is a communication. And the message is this: your value in this person's life is conditional. The insight: presence without purpose is the purest form of loyalty. If someone only arrives when they need something, their absence in other moments is not distraction. It is their true intention, made visible. Most people have been taught that conflict is the enemy of good relationships, and so when they encounter someone who becomes cold, angry, dismissive, or manipulative in response to a simple, clearly communicated boundary, they blame themselves. They wonder if they asked for too much. They soften the boundary. They apologize for having needs. This is one of the most psychologically costly mistakes a person can make. Here is what a boundary response actually reveals. When you tell someone, calmly, respectfully, clearly, that a certain behavior does not work for you, their reaction is a direct transmission from their unconscious about how they view your autonomy. A person who respects you will acknowledge the boundary. They may not fully understand it. They may even feel momentarily hurt by it. But they will not weaponize your self-respect against you. A person who does not respect you will react with punishment. The punishment may be overt: anger, aggression, accusation, or it may be subtle: withdrawal, passive aggression, a cold silence designed to make you feel that your needs are a burden. Either way, the message is the same. Your boundaries are only acceptable to them when they are convenient for them. Carl Jung wrote extensively about the persona, the mask we wear to navigate social reality, and the shadow, the unconscious layer beneath it. He argued that a person with unresolved psychological wounds in areas of control, abandonment, or rejection will experience another person's boundaries as a personal attack on their identity. Because for them, your autonomy implies a potential loss of control. And control, for a psychologically wounded person, is not comfort. It is survival. This plays out in relationships with almost painful predictability. The partner who becomes distant the moment you ask for space. The parent who guilt trips you every time you choose your own needs over their expectations. The boss who subtly makes your work life harder after you declined an after-hours commitment. None of these reactions are accidents. Every single one is a revelation. The Stoics had a precise way of seeing this. Epictetus, who had himself been a slave and understood the mechanics of control better than almost any philosopher in history, taught that the only thing we truly own is our response to what happens to us. A person who cannot tolerate your ownership of your own responses is a person who fundamentally believes they should own you. The insight: how someone responds to your no is the most accurate test of whether they were ever truly for you. Respect does not negotiate with your self-worth. Memory is not neutral. This is one of the most underappreciated truths in all of human psychology. Most people assume that forgetting things is simply a function of being busy, distracted, or overwhelmed. And sometimes it is. But there is another kind of forgetting, a consistent, patterned forgetting that targets specific things. And that kind of forgetting is one of the clearest signals of true intention that exists. Here is what this looks like in practice. Someone remembers, with perfect clarity, every detail of a story that benefits them. They remember every promise you made to them. They remember every time you were late, or failed to show up, or said something clumsy. But they consistently forget your birthday, the job interview you were anxious about, the health news you shared in a vulnerable moment, the specific thing you asked them for 3 times now. This is not scatter-brained distraction. This is selective attention, and selective attention always follows emotional priority. The psychological mechanism here is elegant in its cruelty. The human brain does not store every piece of incoming information with equal weight. It prioritizes what matters. What we care about, we remember. And this means that a person who consistently forgets the things that matter to you is revealing, quietly and undeniably, that you do not hold significant emotional priority in their inner world. Nietzsche wrote that the strongest memory belongs to those with the strongest will, and that forgetting is often not weakness, but choice, even when it doesn't feel like one. He was pointing at something that modern neuroscience has confirmed. Emotionally significant events are encoded more deeply. What we love, we remember. What we are indifferent to, we lose. Consider the friend who forgets your anniversary every year, but can recall every detail of their own. The colleague who forgets your project input in meetings, but remembers their own contributions perfectly. The romantic partner who forgets the things you love, but never forgets the things they love to do. Each forgotten detail is a small, quiet data point. But the pattern those data points form across time is a portrait. And that portrait is the truth of where you actually stand, the insight. Attention is the currency of genuine care. When someone consistently forgets what matters to you, they are not distracted. They are telling you, in the only honest language most people ever use, exactly where you rank. This is the final sign, and in many ways, it is the most profound of all. Character is not who you are when the audience is present. Character is who you are when the theater is empty. Most people perform goodness. They perform loyalty. They perform care and generosity and integrity, not because they feel these things, but because they understand the social rewards that come from being perceived as someone who feels them. And in a world built on impression management, where social media has turned every human life into a curated highlight reel, this performance has become so sophisticated that most people cannot distinguish it from the real thing. But reality does not disappear because no one is watching. And that is precisely when the truth surfaces. Pay attention to how someone behaves when there is no status to gain, when no one is there to witness their kindness, when they could easily take advantage of a situation and no one would ever know. When they are tired, stressed, and their social mask has slipped just slightly, do they treat the waiter with the same warmth they treat their boss? Do they keep commitments when no one would notice if they broke them? Do they speak about you with the same respect in private that they offer in public? Jung argued that a person's psychological integration, what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming fully oneself, could be measured almost entirely by the consistency between their public behavior and their private behavior. The more integrated a person is, the less difference exists between who they are when they are seen and who they are when they are alone. The less integrated, the more psychologically fragmented, the wider that gap becomes, and that gap is where the real danger lives. Nietzsche had no patience for what he called the morality of appearances, the performance of virtue without the substance of it. He wrote that those who perform goodness for audiences but abandon it in private have never truly chosen their values. They have only chosen their image. And the difference between a value and an image is the difference between a foundation and a facade. The real-life version of this is something you may have already sensed without having the language for it. The person who is charming in groups but cutting in private. The partner who is tender when other people are present and cold when alone with you. The friend who speaks about their values loudly in public but makes small, consistent choices in private that contradict everything they claim to stand for. The insight. Who someone is when no one is watching is not a glimpse of their true self. It is their true self. Everything else is theater. Now, let us go deeper. Why do people hide their true intentions? Why do they perform versions of themselves that do not reflect their inner reality? Why does the gap between the mask and the face exist in the first place? The answer is both simple and profound. Fear. Every single behavior we have explored, the forced smile at your success, the gossip, the transactional presence, the boundary punishment, the selective forgetting, the private contradictions, all of them trace back to the same root psychological reality. People are afraid. They are afraid of being seen. They are afraid of being inadequate. They are afraid that if you knew who they truly were, the jealousy they feel, the resentment they carry, the needs they cannot admit, the wounds they have never addressed, you would leave. And so they construct a self to be perceived. They manage their image rather than developing their character. And in those small, unguarded moments, the constructed self slips, and the real one bleeds through. Carl Jung spent his life studying this mechanism. He called it the shadow, the repository of everything we cannot consciously accept about ourselves, everything we have repressed, denied, or disowned. And he argued, with extraordinary psychological precision, that the shadow does not disappear when we refuse to acknowledge it. It goes underground. It leaks into our behavior in exactly the small, involuntary ways we have been discussing. The person who gossips excessively carries wounds around judgment they have never processed. The person who cannot tolerate your boundaries was never given the space to have their own. The person who needs you only when they need something from you learned, at some foundational level in their development, that relationships are transactional because that is the only model they were ever shown. Understanding this does not mean excusing the behavior. It means reading it accurately. Schopenhauer argued that the foundation of human behavior is will, a blind, insatiable drive toward survival, status, and fulfillment, and that most of what we call morality, friendship, and love is this will dressed in socially acceptable clothing. Most people never examine the will beneath their behavior. They simply act on it and call it instinct or feelings or circumstances. But you, having seen this, you now have a choice that most people never even know they have. Seeing clearly is only half the work. The other half is knowing what to do with what you see. Here are 5 responses grounded in philosophy, psychology, and hard-won wisdom. First, observe without reacting. The moment you see a sign, do not confront it immediately. Let the pattern confirm itself. 1 data point is an event. 3 data points in the same direction is a pattern, and a pattern is a truth. Do not make permanent decisions from single observations, but do not dismiss what you have seen. Second, protect your inner world. You cannot control who people are. You can control what you share, with whom, and when. Begin treating your dreams, your vulnerabilities, your ambitions as precious, because they are. Not everyone in your life has earned access to your interior world. The Stoics called this prosos, careful attention to your inner state. Practice it deliberately. Third, respond to behavior, not to potential. One of the most psychologically costly habits a person can develop is the habit of relating to who someone could be rather than who they consistently are. We forgive endlessly. We make excuses. We wait for the version of the person we believe is possible. Meanwhile, the person they actually are continues to behave exactly as they always have. Judge character by consistent action, not by occasional exceptions or by the story you are telling yourself about their best self. Fourth, detach from the need for validation from those who cannot give it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is a great mistake to expect loyalty from someone who cannot be loyal even to themselves. Some people are simply not capable, at this point in their lives, of the quality of relationship you deserve. This is not a judgment of their worth as human beings. It is an accurate assessment of the current reality. And accepting that reality, without bitterness, without the need to change them or convince them, is one of the most genuinely powerful things you can do. Fifth, let your own behavior be your answer. The strongest response to someone who reveals poor intentions is not confrontation, not exposure, not revenge. It is becoming so grounded in your own character, so consistent between your public self and your private self, so genuinely loyal, so truly present, that the contrast speaks without a single word. As Nietzsche put it, become who you are. The rest will reveal itself. We live in the most performative era in human history. Social media has not created inauthentic behavior, but it has industrialized it. It has given everyone access to an audience, and, with that audience, an incentive to construct and maintain a persona, rather than to do the harder, quieter, less visible work of building genuine character. The attention economy rewards the mask. Algorithms amplify emotion over authenticity. Status is measured in engagement, follower counts, and curated aesthetics, rather than in the quality of a person's relationships, the depth of their commitments, or the consistency of their private and public selves. This means that the gap between how people present themselves and who they actually are is wider, on average, than at any previous point in human civilization. The performances are more polished, the masks are more sophisticated, and the small, unguarded moments where the truth leaks through, those have become rarer, more fleeting, and consequently more valuable than ever. Emotional intelligence, real emotional intelligence, not the kind that appears on LinkedIn profiles, has never been more necessary. The ability to observe without immediately reacting, the capacity to read patterns across time rather than making judgments from isolated moments, the willingness to hold what you see clearly without distortion in either direction, neither idealizing people nor condemning them, but simply seeing them. In the modern world, this is a form of power, not the power of dominance or manipulation, but the power of clarity. The power of not being endlessly disappointed because you are no longer endlessly deceived. Carl Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people experience painful patterns in their relationships, the repeated betrayal, the recurring disappointment, the familiar dynamic that plays out with different people across different years, and they attribute it to bad luck. It is not bad luck. It is the consequence of not seeing clearly. The 6 signs we have explored today are tools of perception. They are instruments of psychological clarity in a world that rewards confusion. Here is what you now know that most people never will. People do not hide their true intentions. They reveal them constantly, consistently, and completely in the small, unguarded moments that most of us are too distracted, too hopeful, or too afraid to fully see. The half second before the congratulations, the pattern of who they call and when, the reaction when you draw a line, the things they remember and the things they forget, the gap between the person they perform in public and the person they quietly are when the audience leaves. These are not trivial details. These are the architecture of character. And once you have learned to read that architecture, you possess something genuinely rare in this world: the ability to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. Nietzsche wrote that the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. You will not be able to share this kind of seeing with everyone. Some people are not ready for this level of clarity. Some people need the comfortable lie more than they need the uncomfortable truth. But you are not most people. And that distinction, the willingness to see, even when seeing is difficult, is the beginning of genuine wisdom. Marcus Aurelius spent decades ruling the most powerful empire in the world while writing to himself in private, the notes that would become the Meditations. He wrote not to be seen, but to see, to hold himself accountable, to maintain clarity in a world saturated with flattery and manipulation. He wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." That is the final lesson of everything we have explored today. Your self-respect is not a social variable. It is not something to be negotiated away by people who do not honor it. It is the foundation of everything: your relationships, your decisions, your capacity to live with integrity in a world that will constantly pressure you to do otherwise. See clearly, move wisely, trust slowly, and remember that the people who deserve your trust will not require you to ignore what you see. The people who are truly for you will never be threatened by the fact that you have learned to see.